Quad 66. I'm doing a quick video on, maybe it's not so quick after I start talking, but I'm going to do some frame updates. And one is just an update I've made, and then two is actually kind of looking for some feedback in terms of, should I make some changes in a couple different ways to take the frames kind of to the next level? And that's both on the front in terms of the design of the frame itself, and also thinking about access in terms of being able to buy the frame and not having to wait to ship from China for, I don't know, 120 days or whatever it's taken these days. Anyway, so the actual update on the frame that's already done is, because of these motors, these Jing 1202 motors, these motors have the little the shaft and the spacer and the C-clip, they stick down quite a ways below the bottom of the motor, below the base of the motor, and they're also a little bit oversized. You need about 4 millimeters to clear it. And on my old frames, the hole is just tiny bit too small. And you can open it up. You can take a 4 millimeter drill bit and just kind of open it up, ream it open a little bit, and get the clearance you need, and you're good to go. And that's fine. But I get worried on this section right here in terms of not like if you already have a frame, I'm not that worried if you drill it out, no big deal. But in terms of like manufacturing, is this getting too thin here where when you're having it cut from the CNC cutters, is this getting a little bit dodgy where you're going to start having problems in this area when you're actually manufacturing? I think if you're using a hand drill and taking it out to 4 millimeters yourself and you're careful, I don't see any problems. I haven't had any problems myself. But anyways, to address that issue, I did do an update on the motor mount, and it's kind of funny. It's such a tiny change, but it required me to like redesign this whole motor mount. It's the same, it's just kind of enlarged, but to make it all work, I had to do quite a bit of work on it. But anyways, so on Armatan, what you might notice now is in the descriptions they mention this, this compatibility, and so if you need that compatibility, there's a version 1.1. On the 120 WarPig, specifically in a 2 millimeter, you're actually going to see two versions up there because for whatever reason, that was like the last one I uploaded to that site, and for whatever reason, that frame is now, like, the price just bumped to where the 2 millimeter frame was more expensive than the 3 millimeter frame, which didn't make sense to me. I tried pulling it down and re-uploading it, same thing. So anyways, what I did is I left the original version with a slightly smaller hole here, just for if you don't need that issue, if that's not an issue for you, order the old one. It's a couple bucks cheaper. Like, save the money. Don't pay $2-3 for whatever reason if you don't need it. But anyway, so if you do need that larger hole, it's the version 1.1 frame. And if you don't need that, then you can order the older WarPig 120 2 millimeter, and it's fine. But anyway, so those are the actual updates. Then the next part about this then is like, okay, I've sold I've sold quite a few of these frames. There's quite a few of them floating around up there, but it's also not like enough to say like it's so many that I like should open a store and start stocking them and things like that. But I'd be curious, like, is it possible to get it to that level? And so thinking of like moving forward, I have a couple questions of like what people are building, like what is the most common way that people are building up these frames, and what are the most common like limiters for people that they may or may not want to buy these frames. One of those limiters I'm pretty fully aware is going to be the zip tie canopy. I'm a builder, I enjoy building stuff, and for me the zip tie canopy, just pulling things that are cheap and I can make it fully customizable, I like that. But I realize for some people they might not like that. They might want to just bolt on a canopy. So in the comments below to these questions, just feel free to leave some feedback and say, yeah, I would totally be interested in your frames if you just put an actual canopy on these things. The other one too is like, is the limiter Armatan? Like, Armatan so they do a good job cutting. I think they use pretty decent carbon fiber. They are a little pricey, but the biggest thing is probably it just takes a long time to get something from Armatan. They take a while to cut it, and then they take even longer to ship it. I mean, it's not really them that's taking a long time to ship it. It's just shipping from China. It takes a long time. So if we had a source, from like in North America that we could get things, would people now suddenly flock to this frame and buy a whole bunch more of these if they could just get them quicker? and potentially a little bit cheaper. So that's kind of that side of the question. So question 1, canopy. Do you care about canopies? Question 2 is the location. And then question 3 is, how are you building these up? So on the WarPig frame, this is supposed to be kind of like a do-all frame. So if I were to stock something, this would be the frame I would stock. I'd stock it in 2mm because you can do kind of everything with it. So the inner part of these slots, you can do your 16 by 16 builds like that. The outer part of the slots, that's 25.5 by 25.5, and so you can mount your your super whoop kind of boards on there that way. And then also, if you wanted to keep the traditional whoop orientation, I've got these 2 holes in the front and back, and so that way you can mount them up like this. And although I don't like this layout kind of personally from an aesthetic perspective, I do really appreciate how easy it is to come in and solder these, because these solder pads are kind of sticking out, and it's where they're nice and accessible. But 2 issues with mounting it this way is, one, if you just use 2 screws, kind of front and back, the board tends to be kind of like a little bit unstable on there, and so fast movements, you might throw off your gyro a little bit if there's a little bit of wiggle there. And so I found the easiest way to kind of stabilize the board is just throwing some, so you can just see I took a rubber band, threw it over here and went across it and across each way. And between the motor wires and the rubber bands, this is actually pretty nice and solid, and it really doesn't wiggle around a whole lot. I've also tried doing some things like putting in a little bit of double-sided foam tape underneath to kind of build up and brace it up that way. The rubber bands for me seem to be working out the best. But with that said, as easy as that is, it's a little bit like, it looks a little like it's not the most finished of products. Also, when you go to grab it, you don't have a good place to grab because you got this sharp pokey stuff here, like at these ends of the boards. And so it would be kind of nice to have the 4th mounting holes. And I can do that. I did a design, I've actually got it done, where I took this bar here, instead of kind of swooping in, making things flow real nice, I kind of came straight down over here. And then there's a little bit, the hole sticks out on the sides here, so you've got the 2 mounting holes that way. I don't think it's going to change the weight significantly. I'm hoping it doesn't change the characteristics in terms of the flex, because this design that I have right now, and please feel free to share. If you're breaking these, let me know. I haven't been able to break one in a while with my usual flying, and I'm not holding back. But I'm hoping that if I change the structure here, that I'm not going to introduce a new stress riser and they're going to start breaking someplace that I don't expect. But anyways, I can do that. I can make a frame that's going to have 4 holes for the whoop mounting. I don't like adding material when we don't have to, because it adds weight, and with these slots, these all make a ton of sense because your mount, you have the thickness where you want it, you have the bracing where you want it around, and it kind of works together with the arms. But when you start adding these things, just nubbins off the side, it's just kind of, the only point of that is really, it's not structural for supporting the arms at all. All it's doing is supporting the board, and that kind of starts to bother me a little bit conceptually when we're so focused on weight and keeping things light. But anyways, so let me know in the comments those questions. 1, do you want a canopy that you don't have to make, that's not made out of zip ties, something that's like either printed or polycarb or carbon fiber or something like that? And 2, is what's kind of holding people back, is it the ordering issue? Do you not want to order from Armatan? 3, how are you building these up? Are we doing 16 by 16 mostly? Are we doing whoop boards? And if so, are we mounting them up square? Or are we doing them more diamond orientation? And if we are doing them diamond orientation, do you want those extra little holes? And yeah, so anyways, 10 minutes talk time is probably enough. Till next time, cheers.